Welcome to the Help for Leaders podcast. I'm Stacey Harris, and I'm passionate about showing leaders the power of communication and how it can transform their organizations, from Fortune 500 boardrooms all the way to brand new startups. As a leader, your actions and your words transform people and your company culture. So join me as I share tips and insights for elevating your leadership abilities as well as your team's performance. Let's dive right in. Hi, y'all. Welcome back to the Help for Leaders podcast. I'm Stacey Harris, and today's episode, we're going to be talking about 5 characteristics of leadership. And these might not be the 5 characteristics that immediately come to mind when you think of a leader. I know when I think of leadership, I think of confidence. I think of someone who's great at making decisions, maybe risk-taking, someone who's a great communicator, who can delegate, who can empower others. All of those are amazing pieces of leadership and needed. But today I want to talk about 5 other things that maybe aren't talked about as much and maybe you haven't thought about. And really it has to do with character. And character is so vitally important as a leader. So the first aspect that I want to talk about today is integrity. It's all about honesty, all about our words that we speak. It's all about literally practicing what you preach. Are you willing to do what you're asking others to do? That's what integrity is all about. It's all about making sure that your words build people up and not tear them down. I've mentioned this in a previous episode, but my mentor always used to say, when we're communicating with others, we want to maintain and enhance their self-esteem. That's a piece of integrity, of really being honest with who you are, honest with your words. And really, integrity also means owning your own mistakes, admitting when you're wrong, saying that, telling that to your team, not blaming others, and not justifying your mistakes. Has nothing to do with making excuses. So that's what integrity is all about. Owning who you are, practicing what you preach, making sure that your message is one of honesty and integrity. The second piece of leadership that I want to talk about is authenticity. Being genuine, being real, being the same person in public that you are in private. Practicing that authentic lifestyle. Because if you're leading these dual realities, it's going to catch up with you. And so being that authentic person that's the same when you're with your team as you are when you're alone, being genuine. And really, I want to tell you, when you work alongside someone who's a genuine leader, you're actually when you're more authentic as a leader, your team engages more. Their creativity, they feel empowered, they're engaged, their whole hearts are in it, and they want to be a part of your team. And so teamwork and loyalty can actually spread throughout an organization, resulting in higher levels of morale and productivity when you're your most authentic self. Okay, so that's the second aspect of leadership. The third piece of leadership that I want to talk about is humility. That's not something we always think about when we think of a leader. But let me tell you, humility is so vitally important to leadership today. It's that quality of being humble, of putting others before yourself. It's all about thinking of others and really including your team in your decision making. And this can look like even admitting when you're wrong. That's a piece of humility. A humble leader will admit when they're wrong, acknowledging that you're not always right. Many of us, me included, like to be right. And we like to communicate that rightness to others. But a humble leader will admit when they're wrong and take responsibility for their actions. Self-awareness is the first step to humility as a leader. Appreciating others' strengths and their contributions to your team. That's what humility looks like, when you're appreciating every aspect of your team. And then openness to new ideas and even being able to receive feedback is a sign of humility. So that's the third piece of leadership that I want to talk about. Number 4, empathy. I love empathy. Daniel Goleman is someone who's done a ton of research on emotional intelligence. If you've listened to any of my other episodes, you've maybe heard me talk about EQ, and a lot of his study was on empathy. Brené Brown is another one that talks a lot about empathy, and it's a huge differentiating aspect of leadership, and it's so vitally needed. So what is empathy? It's really just that ability to understand the needs of others and really be able to be aware of their feelings, even maybe what they're thinking. That's what empathy looks like. It's compassion, okay? When your team feels like that they're valued, that you appreciate them, that you understand them, where they're coming from, they're more loyal, they're more engaged, they're more productive. And so there have been so many studies on leadership today that actually demonstrate how empathy, when it's engaged with employees, it's such a differentiating factor, and you actually have long-term relationships with your team members when you show empathy. Do you know the number one reason most people leave a job? Mismanagement. So if, as a leader, you can understand how to exhibit empathy and show compassion to those that you're leading, it's a huge aspect in boosting morale, engagement, and then also in retention, keeping those individuals engaged with your organization. And the last piece of leadership that I want to talk to you about today, that is also maybe not something that you think about when you think about a leader, is generosity. And I have studied Jack Welch. He was the leader of GE in the 80s and 90s. He was a ruthless, cutthroat leader, but he was also one of the most generous individuals with sharing his knowledge and his time. And so I want to encourage you. Sometimes when we think of generosity, we think of money. And that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. I'm actually talking about being generous with your time. You've probably all heard that kids spell love Time. It's the same with individuals in our organizations. When we spend time, when we communicate value, when we are engaged with them through generosity of our knowledge, of our information, of our time, it absolutely impacts individuals personally, but it makes a huge impact in your organization. And so be generous with your knowledge. Seek out opportunities to fuel success in others. It's powerful. Be generous with your words. Encourage others. Be generous in finding somebody doing something right and making them aware that you see it and that you appreciate what they're doing. Generosity with words of encouragement, powerful. And leaders don't create followers. Leaders create more leaders. And so I want to encourage you with these 5 aspects of leadership, with integrity, with being someone who is authentic, humble, someone who's all about being empathetic, and having generosity. I hope you've learned something about yourself, maybe where areas that you can grow and improve. We'd love to help you get there. Reach out to us. If you have any questions about anything we've talked about today, you can go to our website. You can fill out our contact form. We would love to engage with you and help you grow as a leader. I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode on characteristics of leadership, and I hope you'll join us next week for another topic on Help for Leaders. Thank you for joining us today. You have the potential to communicate, engage, and lead with significant impact, and my goal is to help you do just that. Whether you're trying to get that next big promotion, scale your small business, or manage a team of thousands, there's always room for growth, and I can help you get there. Go to disc-report.com and find out what style of leader you are by downloading my free ebook on communication. Until next time, lead well and prosper.